I'm going to be using this topology for the next examples. And basically what we have in here is a Cisco ASA with two interfaces, an outside interface and an inside interface. The outside interface is connected to the internet, and of course the inside interface is connected to the inside network or the corporate network. And we also have a remote client that in this case is actually, it can be any user connected from their home, from a coffee shop, from an airport, from a hotel. So of course this remote client is actually connected to the internet. One of the easiest ways to configure clientless SSL VPN or any type of VPN is by using ASDM, and specifically by using the VPN wizards in ASDM. So to configure clientless SSL VPN, you go to Wizards, you select VPN Wizards, then you select Clientless SSL VPN Wizard. Then the screen is shown in here, it's actually displayed. And basically what it is an introduction of what you're about to configure, which is a clientless SSL VPN connection. The next step is to configure a connection profile. And in this case, we're actually giving the name of my clientless SSL VPN. Another thing is that this SSL VPN is, of course, terminated in the outside interface. So we're selecting the outside interface as the SSL VPN interface. The next thing that we're configuring is a group alias or a connection group alias or URL. And in this case, we're actually creating an alias or a group URL for contractors, assuming that that remote client will be a contractor. And basically by doing so, you can do a few things. A user can actually select the group alias from a drop-down menu at the login page, or can actually directly access, the SSL VPN to that URL, so /contractors. And one also thing to highlight is that in order for you to manage the ASA in the outside interface using ASDM, you actually have to use the admin URL or the /admin like I'm displaying at the bottom of the screen. You also select display group alias in the login page to, of course, be able to display all the group aliases at the login page in a drop-down list. Once you click on next, the next step is to configure authentication. And you can do so by configuring an external authentication server. You can use things like Radius or TACACS or RSAs, LDAP. In this example, I'm actually going to keep it fairly simple. So actually, I'm going to be using the local database. And here I actually have three users, Derek, Admin, and Omar. I'm going to click on Next. Then I'm going to create a new group policy. So in my example here, the group policy is called My Group Policy. Very simple. I click on Next. And the next thing is actually to configure a list of group intranet sites, so internal websites, that will appear in the portal page as links so the clientless SSL VPN users can actually navigate to. Here, I click on Manage to start the entries of all the internal links, to be actually in the portal. In my case, actually, I already had one configured called Intranet Sites. So I double click on that to edit it. And here you actually see that I have one for intranet sites, and basically it's just an intranet site 1 and .cisco.com. You can actually add one by clicking on Add. You can do things, selecting an option to use for the bookmark reaction, using a GET or a POST, predefined applications such as Microsoft Outlook Web Access, SharePoint, Citrix. There's support for several applications, or you can select HTML form auto submit. So this option lets you create bookmarks for any complex auto sign-on applications that you may have in your environment. Again, I'm actually just going to use the one that I had created. It's called Intranet Site. And then I click on Next. And then basically that's it. There are only 6 steps, and the first one is the summary of what you're about to configure. And this one, which is the step 6, is actually the summary of what you configure. So definitely you can configure a clientless SSL VPN within minutes or even less than a minute. Once you click on Finish, you actually see a preview of the CLI commands that are actually sent to the Cisco ASA. In this case, we actually see the group policies with the actual names. The group policy in this case is an internal group policy with the specific attributes or VPN tunnel protocol specification for SSL clientless SSL VPN, the web VPN command, and then you actually see that we start populating all the intranet sites That's actually something that you do not see in the configuration itself. So if you do a show run, you don't see the actual intranet sites. That's actually stored in a different area of the Cisco ASA. But in here, you actually see how the ASDM is actually walking through the configuration, entering all these commands. You see even that it does exit twice in this example. And then you see that it uses the tunnel group command. In this case, we named it my clientless SSL VPN. And the type is remote access. And under the general attributes, which is the next line under, you see that the default group policy is set to my group policy, which is the one that was configured previously. Then you actually see the tunnel group my clientless SSL VPN with the web VPN attributes. You see that the group alias is actually added, which is contractors in this case. That is enabled. Of course, this in this case is actually enabled to the outside interface. And you also see the group URL that we specified originally in the wizard. So again, the IP address of the outside interface /contractors and followed by the keyword enable.